did not shoot any free throws. So it's not just Caitlin that didn't shoot free throws. Aaliyah Boston didn't shoot any either, bro. Crazy work. This whole thing, that's why I keep telling you guys, this thing is bigger than the fever. It's the entire W.
So how do you prevent that from happening? Is that just the way the game's being called?
I mean, some of it, but we've got to do a better job collectively as a team.
The post-game press conference following Indiana's loss to the New York Liberty produced several notable moments, the most pointed being Clark's own commentary on her foul situation, when a reporter noted that she had accumulated 4 or more fouls in multiple consecutive games. Clark responded that she was probably leading the league in that category, before adding, with visible irony, that she still had not shot a free throw. The remark landed as a direct acknowledgement of a pattern that had been building across several weeks. The box score from the game confirmed it. Clark played 34 minutes without a single free throw attempt. Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, and Sophie Cunningham also finished with 0 free throw attempts.
I mean, some of it, but we've got to do a better job collectively as a team. I mean, there were a couple of those where we had opportunities to plug gaps because the person that we were guarding was behind the play, and we got impatient. We didn't help her out. We didn't plug the gaps. Some of those are rotation based, but some of them it's just our team defensive positioning has to be better, and that can take some pressure off of C if we're in the right spots.
Monique, obviously,
The entire Indiana starting rotation, with the exception of Kelsey Mitchell, went through the game without visiting the line. Mitchell shot 5 of 7 from the stripe and led the team with 21 points. The contrast between the two groups was sharp. Clark's foul totals across her last 5 games told a parallel story. 5 fouls against Golden State, 4 against Golden State again, 4 against Portland, 4 against Atlanta, and 5 against New York. Each of those games saw Clark accumulate personal foul trouble while simultaneously drawing no foul calls in her favor. Footage from the Liberty game showed a moment where a defender absorbed contact to Clark's face without a whistle, with the visual distortion of the impact visible on replay.
Monique, obviously, see 9 minutes, 15 points, and felt like much of the game you were kind of dictating inside. You just kind of take me through what was working for you tonight.
My teammates finding me. I think I did a good job cutting off the ball, finding gaps, outlets.
Guys, I like Monique Billings as a person, but her basketball IQ ain't quite there yet, because I recorded a lot of the game on my phone that I'm going to make a video about tomorrow. But
the play was not called. White addressed the officiating in general terms during her press conference, acknowledging that some of the defensive breakdowns contributing to foul trouble were rotation-based and fixable, while noting that team defensive positioning needed to improve to reduce pressure on individual defenders. On the offensive side, she cited tunnel vision and ball movement, stagnation as factors that limited Indiana despite 23 free throw attempts in the fourth quarter. The Fever shot 40% from the field overall and made 8 of 25 from 3. Clark's own assessment of the fourth quarter pointed to the free throw disparity as the decisive factor. Indiana had defended Breanna Stewart reasonably well and limited New York from the perimeter, but the Liberty drew 21 free throws that effectively stopped the clock and generated uncontested scoring.
Because I recorded a lot of the game on my phone that I'm gonna make a video about tomorrow. But she misses a lot of passes, bro. I mean, like, it's almost like Monique Billings don't even know where she like supposed to be, bro. I swear to you, bro. I mean, like, Caitlin Clark will pass her the ball and she'll be like, damn, I didn't know that ball was coming. I just gotta keep it real, man.
And finishing.
And Steph, just for you, what are you seeing from Monique tonight that, and I just related to it, how much was this what you were looking for from her so far this season?
Yeah, I thought her.
Clark noted that the end of the third quarter also carried into the fourth, with Indiana getting caught by New York's zone and turning the ball over at critical moments. One element of the game that drew no reporter questions during the press conference was the decision to operate Clark primarily off the ball throughout the contest. The pick and roll, noted by broadcasters during the game as Indiana's most effective offensive tool, was largely absent. At one point, Clark was shown setting up off a screen from Cunningham, anticipating a return pass to attack from the left side of the floor, only for the play to break down without the ball returning to her. The pattern repeated across multiple possessions, with teammates moving away from Clark after she vacated the ball handler position, rather than feeding it back. White praised Monique Billings for her activity level, her cutting off the ball, and her presence on the offensive glass in the first half.
What you were looking for from her so far this season?
Yeah, I thought her activity level was really good. On both ends of the floor. She was in the first half, especially the most active on the glass for us. Her cutting was really good. A couple of those opportunities, I felt like she was able to go into the rim because she got out of screens quickly, or because off the ball she recognized open areas. Got to the cuts. She was solid for us on the defensive end of the floor. Her activity was very good. Look, I mean, we talked about it pregame. It's going to be finding her way. She's asked to.
She acknowledged that Billings is being asked to play a different role than in previous seasons, and suggested she had shown a capacity to adapt within the constraints of playing alongside Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Boston. New York's postgame comments reflected an awareness that the margin had been narrower than the final result suggested. Brianna Stewart noted that the team responded to a 12-point deficit by becoming more aggressive, and that the win required a genuine shift in defensive intensity rather than a comfortable close. Liberty coach Chris Coclanes pointed to offensive rebounding, 13 in total, as the mechanism that kept New York competitive despite shooting 2 of 18 from 3. The team also held in Indiana to 4 points off 11 turnovers, a possession efficiency that proved decisive. Clark's 5-game foul accumulation, paired with 0 free throw production across that same stretch, represents one of the more unusual statistical combinations in the league this season. And her press conference remark about leading the league in fouls while being unable to reach the line signaled that she was not inclined to leave that observation unspoken.
Play a different role than she played, a year ago and 2 seasons ago. And, Mo's been a bit like a chameleon. I think she's been asked to play lots of different roles in her career. And when you're playing with, Caitlin and Kelsey and Aaliyah, finding your way sometimes is part of the process. And I felt like today she seemed like she was in a flow.
Caitlin, this is a venue where you always come and people, there's as many of your jerseys.
The Amazon Prime broadcast of the Fever Dream game drew significant backlash for what many observers described as a sustained, one-sided treatment of Caitlin Clark throughout the pregame, in-game, and halftime coverage. The core complaint centers on the broadcast, using a substantial portion of its airtime to scrutinize Clark's defensive game, while offering no acknowledgement of what was, by most accounts, her best defensive performance of her career, Clark locked up Tina Powell on multiple possessions, was consistently left without help defense by the team's scheme, and still managed to make stops in isolation. None of that was mentioned on air. The halftime desk focused instead on Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray in glowing terms, despite both players having poor games. Angel Reese received her own highlight package in the pregame.
Venue where you always come and people, there's as many of your jerseys as almost any other person. But basketball right now is the very center of New York. Did this game feel any different than your normal, crazy Raucous Liberty crowd?
Yeah, I mean, every time we come here, the crowd is incredible. I saw some mixed jerseys pregame too, so that's kind of cool seeing young kids in mixed jerseys. So, but their crowd is amazing, always behind them. Like, this is one of the hardest places to play in the league. So, I enjoy coming and playing here as people that just really love women's basketball and really support it and have since day one. So,
Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston were not discussed in any meaningful way. What the broadcast did spend time on was analyzing Clark's defensive shortcomings and heavily implying, without stating directly, that she is difficult to coach. Multiple minutes were used to suggest she creates friction within the team structure. The implication of diva behavior was present, and the suggestion that she is a poor teammate was raised at a lighter but still detectable level. The broadcast aired no retraction or correction after the Fever won. The character framing built up over those segments was never walked back.
have since day one. So, for me, this is one of my favorite venues, and they were incredible at night. They really helped in the fourth kind of rally and take the lead from us.
Keelan, from your perspective in fourth quarter, where did things kind of get away from you?
We fouled. And, honestly, we guarded Stewie pretty well, and we guarded them pretty well from the 3-point line. It's just, when you give somebody 21 free throws, it makes things really difficult. And,
This reflects a broader pattern that has become more visible over the past year. Media coverage of Clark follows a recognizable cycle, a building phase where she is praised and promoted, followed by a tearing down phase where criticism is amplified and negative narratives are constructed. What has shifted in 2025 is that the tear down phase now carries less social friction than it did in 2024. Being openly critical of Clark has become normalized in mainstream sports, media spaces, and defending her has become associated in some circles with a specific type of commentator, which has made neutral or positive coverage harder to publish without blowback. The incentive structure behind the coverage is not particularly complicated. Straightforward. Praise of Clark no longer drives significant traffic.
Literally, it's been 5 minutes of shitting on Caitlin Clark.
Now they're literally trying to demonstrate how Caitlin Clark could play better defense, as if she doesn't know how to play defense and she doesn't have a coach that knows how to teach her how to play defense.
And they were like, oh yeah, if Caitlin does this, the help comes. No, they literally left her on an island intentionally. That was literally their go-to. It was a bad system. We know when it comes down to it that Caitlin Clark is at best.
Conflict, coaching, controversy, and sabotage narratives generate far more engagement. Framing Stephanie White as someone undermining Clark, or suggesting a coordinated effort to limit her impact, produces clicks in a way that accurate game analysis does not. Several outlets have leaned into that dynamic regardless of what actually happened on the court. The Stephanie White angle is worth examining separately. Face sport. That is standard accountability, not a conspiracy.
Comes down to it that Caitlin Clark is at best, slightly above average, at worst, slightly below average defender. That's really what she is. She's not this unbelievable player. She's not this awful player. But I will say this. it's one of those things where even before this, right here, you've got they spent 3 or 4 minutes basically calling.
The suggestion that White is actively working against Clark does not hold up to serious examination. White is operating within a roster that has significant limitations, and the offense functions at a measurably higher level when Clark is on the floor than when she is not. That is a personnel and system problem, not evidence of sabotage. There are legitimate critiques to be made of how the Fever are constructed and how the offense is deployed. Clark shooting 6 of 17 while still being the team's most impactful player in an ugly defensive game against Atlanta is not a crisis.
You've got they spent 3 or 4 minutes basically calling. They called Kate. They basically didn't say it, but they heavily implied Caitlin Clark is a diva. They heavily implied it. They heavily implied Caitlin Clark's hard to coach, and they lightly implied. I'm not going to say heavily implied. They lightly implied Caitlin Clark's a bad teammate. We have to talk about different things that they're implying because obviously there's all these implications there are different levels to it all. There are different levels to it all, but they definitely.
Hard shooting nights happen. Conceptualizing that within her overall defensive output and floor, work that night would be honest analysis. The broadcast did not provide that. Comparisons to Paige Buchers and Olivia Miles have also surfaced in media discussion. Buchers is highly skilled and a legitimate star.
Lightly implied it. Again, I'm not going to say heavily implied, lightly implied. But they went out of their way, it seemed, to do that. But we've now got a situation where, look, you are supposed to be previewing the game. And did they mention Caitlin Clark, or did they mention, Kelsey Mitchell or Aaliyah Boston in the preview of this game? No.
Miles entered the league with an aggressive confidence similar to Clark's and is playing for a coach in Cheryl Reeve, who has given her significant creative freedom. Neither comparison requires diminishing Clark to be made fairly. The through line across all of this is that Clark remains the primary traffic driver for WNBA content, and the media apparatus around the league has figured out that negative Clark content outperforms positive Clark content at this stage of her career. That calculation is driving coverage decisions more than any commitment to accurate reporting. The fact that a game where she was arguably at her defensive peak produced 10 minutes of criticism and 0 minutes of credit is the clearest available evidence of that dynamic.
No. Did they mention Alicia Gray or Ryan Howard? I can't remember, but it wasn't in it wasn't in any productive context. They showed a hype tape of Angel Reese and then shit on Caitlin Clark for the rest of it. And then at halftime, and by the way, Caitlin Clark was playing poor offensively. Unbelievable on defense. Like, this was Caitlin Clark's best defensive game of her career by a mile. I think everyone will tell you that. Did they mention one word about her defense on the broadcast? No. Her defense on the broadcast? No. And even when, and I get this, I don't take this as singling out the Indiana Fever, or as intentionally singling or targeting Caitlin Clark. But when Caitlin Clark locked up Pow Pow, she's left open, and it was Caitlin Clark is left on an island. And then when Caitlin Clark has to stop, it's like suffocating defense by the Fever when there was zero help and she just locked up Tahina Pow Pow and swatted her. I'm like, I don't think that was malicious. But when when everything's taken into account, not one word was said about Caitlin Clark's defense at halftime. It was all talking about Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray in a positive way. Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray stunk it up. They both sucked. Every player on the Atlanta Dream sucked. You can give Angel a pass because she's a role player and she tried. She did what she's supposed to do. She played a bit of if if you believe Angel Reese is just a turbocharged role player, she had a game. She was fine. If you believe Angel Reese is star, then they all stunk it up for Atlanta. That being said, the Amazon Prime did not at any stage in their pregame, in their halftime. I don't think they had a post game because I think they went directly to another game. So I don't think there was a post game show.